Hi, this is John Ryan, and welcome to the Team Handball News podcast. Very special guest today, live from France, Nicole Andersen.
Hi, guys.
Hey, I'm glad to finally get a hold of you and get this podcast interview. I've been watching your matches in France on the internet, and of course, I've seen you play for the U.S. Women's National Team several times, and I remember the first time I heard your name. It was a decade ago, maybe longer.
I think so, yeah.
And somebody told me, oh yeah, there's this Danish girl who's even played some junior national for Denmark. I'm like, wow, that'd be something if we can get her to play for the US. So tell me a little bit about your handball background, when you got started, and basically run through your career a little bit.
Okay. So, well, as you said, I'm Danish American. So I was born in the States, but only lived there for 2 years. And then we moved back to Denmark with my family. And as some of you may know, in Denmark, handball is kind of the national sport. A lot of people play it. So, of course, I had to play it as well, like many of my other friends. When I was little. So actually, when I was 5, my parents brought me to my first handball practice in a small city club next to where they lived. I didn't like it in the beginning. I was actually kind of afraid of the ball. So they kind of forced me to try it out a bit. Also because all my friends were playing, so it was fun to be there, but not so fun when nobody wanted to do the passes with you because you couldn't really grab the ball. Then 1 year after, we actually moved to France with my parents, and they took me to a club in France where we played with these like not like hard balls, but these soft handballs. So it didn't hurt when you kind of grabbed it, and this actually helped me out to not be afraid of the ball when somebody threw it after me. And this was actually my first real handball practice without being afraid. So it was a good
What
move.
age were you then?
I was around 6 years old, so
Oh.
I was still very young. And in France, they had this like a handball education where you start out kind of like not with the 6 people playing on the line, but you go man to man and just run around on the court. So my first handball trainings were actually not so standard European wise. It was a little bit more running around, but it made me at least not be afraid of the ball, and I learned like the fundamentals. Then we moved back to Denmark, and I got like the real Scandinavian handball education. And as the years went by, I got a little bit older. I was very tall very early at age. So already when I was around 8 or 9, they knew I was going to play the backcourt. So they threw me out there, and I just grabbed my chance. And luckily I could see that I had some potential in this sport. So it also pushed me to keep on going, even though some of the girls chose to do something else. And when I was around the age of maybe 13, the national selection started to come, and I was selected for this like a national camp. It was not like the national team, but it was like within the federation. They start pretty early in Denmark with these tryouts, etc., etc. And this also made me do the choice to change a club, because I needed to, is it now I go a little bit more in on this, or is it just going to be with my friends? So I chose to change a club, and I got to a club that was a little bit more focused on the talent and playing high level, etc., etc. And this club I played in actually all my years of my youth handball. It was a super good experience for me. We had a team where we could all, from youth 14 up until youth 18, we stayed together, same team. And this is also where I did my first selection with the Danish national team for the youth 16. And I did my first senior year there, so it was really like it's my like childhood club, I would say, and also where I had my first experiences of going to the championship of Denmark, doing these international competitions, and we were in Prague, we were in where did we go, to Germany, several places to play. So yeah, and
What was the
then
club team in Denmark that you were playing for
it
there?
was called Hellerup IK.
Okay.
It's called, and it's also I actually moved back to this club later on in my career. So I really played a lot of seasons there. But just to keep track, so yeah, this is where I had my youth years. And then when I got senior, I wanted to experience first division in Denmark. So I went playing in another club called Lyngby, where I played for one season. I didn't get that much playing time, so that was not really a good fit for me. And then I actually chose to go to France to play. I had 1 year before starting my university, so I went to France for 1 year and played professional there. Super good experience. My first international experience, if I can, as like a club team. So that was fun, and then I moved back to Denmark again. So this is kind of my club experience. And then when it comes to the national team, I only did like a few games with the Danish national team, and then I could see that it was a little. I didn't have the capabilities of going further with them, and then the US team came to me. So
Well, it wasn't like I'm sure you felt like you were competitive with the other
yeah,
girls on the Danish youth team, but you kind of saw that they were better, and the path there was going to be pretty tough.
exactly. Even though it was still, we were still young, and some people get better in the age of 20, some in the age of 25. It's just with the Danish Federation, they pick out a handful of girls they kind of want to go for, and then the rest, you can understand. Okay, this
Sure.
is not. I'm not a part of this team. So I know that's totally okay. I mean, there are a lot of people who plays handball, so they need to do a
Right.
choice.
Yeah. So when did you first start playing for the U.S.?
My first camp with the US was when I was very young. I think I was like 12 or something. It was just to try out, just to see what it was. It was like in the time where there was not a real youth national, or I was not old enough to get on the real youth national team for Denmark. So it was like before I was on the official Danish national team. So it was like kind of to try out. But I was super young, and it was a fun experience. It was in Germany somewhere, can't remember where. And the girls were much older than me, so it was tough to integrate a little bit in the team. Even though they were super nice with me, I just think I was a little bit too young. So it kind of scared me a bit. And then the whole Danish national team came up, so I was like, oh, that's not anything for me. and then I retried out in 2016, I think, or maybe a little bit before 2014. I'm actually not sure. But it was definitely later on when I knew that the Danish national team were no longer a possibility.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about your experience playing for the U.S. and your integration with the U.S. team. When was the first big tournament that you played with for the U.S.? Big tournament in terms
Um,
of like qualifying for either the Pan Am Games or the World
yeah.
Championship.
Well, I think actually my first real international tournament was the qualification for the Pan Am Games, where we played against Canada. I think that was my first real, or I'm a bit confused if it was, yeah, I think so.
Did you beat Canada?
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Because
Yes. Okay. So that would have been 2015 then.
exactly.
And then did you also play in the matches against Uruguay?
Yes, I did,
Okay.
which
So
was
that was,
for, that was also some kind of qualification.
yeah. So you guys played Canada first, I believe. Um, and then I'm trying to think my thoughts too. I definitely know Uruguay was like a last chance tournament. If
Exactly. That was the last chance tournament for the, oh yeah, that was maybe just the last chance tournament for the Pan Am, because we didn't beat Canada, I think.
yeah,
And we also unfortunately lost against Uruguay, because I remember we went down there and we had a tough loss down there. So that was like my first experience with the US team on like a real international scene. And the integration wise was super good, because I really I liked all the girls. With my, like, I could come and give something to the team with my Scandinavian point of view of playing handball, which was a bit different from the American style and some of the other European girls. So I definitely could. I felt like I could provide something to the team, and all of the girls were super nice. I had a good relationship with Christian, the former head coach. So integration wise, it was super good. It was more the results that were maybe not the best in the beginning, but then it also takes time to build up a team, and I think that's
sure,
what
sure.
was needed.
Now I'm a little bit intrigued as well. So you say you lived in the U.S. probably when you were very young. Do you
Yeah,
remember anything at all about?
not much. No, I remember we lived on a golf course, but that was everything I can remember from there. But other than that, no, I have no memories. So I don't have the biggest attachment to the U.S., which is sometimes a bit bizarre, because with the other girls they have like a strong national feeling, where I'm still learning the national anthem. It's like a bit embarrassing to say, but it's in the meantime it's that's just how it is when you're not.
Yeah,
um
it's an interesting situation, because and sometimes folks get, like, Ryan, you're being, divisive, like talking about the dual citizens and the stateside, and I'm like, hey, everybody's American. And it's just interesting to know a little bit about their background, and it's important
mm,
how everyone comes together as one team. And I've thought about this a little bit because I lived in France for 5 years.
okay.
Um, and you live in another country, and people ask you questions. And I was in the Air Force, living in Paris, and right up to the Iraq War. And you can imagine the types of questions I got from my teammates, and
Yeah.
what in some ways it made me think more about being an American than than any time I had living in the U.S. Because I
Mm,
was like, one American out of a bunch of French people, and so everybody naturally had questions about U.S. and at that time they were like, "On George Bush, what do you think of George Bush as president?" And I'm like, "Well, I yeah, and you try to be diplomatic, uh, but then you also like, wow, I'm representing my country here. A lot of people are curious as to what I say and how I say. Has that happened to you? And I guess it's even a little bit more unique because deciding to be an American and wear an American, uniform, that's a
mm,
conscious decision that you had to make. I mean, have you ever sat
for
back and said,
sure.
I'm an American?
Yeah, and for sure, because it's everyone knows the United States. Everyone has an opinion on the United States. So for sure, when you say, "Oh, I'm half American. I'm playing on the U.S. national team," people are like, either they're like, "You're not American. How can you say you're American? You're completely Danish. You've never lived over there. You don't have any family," and or they're like, "Oh, wow, do you play for them? Isn't that great? How does that feel?" So it's like very different opinions people have on the fact that I call myself American, and it's funny because I'm born there, so that's just how it is, and I'm proud to say that I'm American, and of course I don't have the same opinion about the country as people who have lived there their whole life has, but I'm proud to say that I'm American, and when I put on the jersey, I'm proud to represent the country, and of course people have questions about politics, etc., but I just try to focus on the sport, and just show that the U.S. can be great at handball as any other country. So yeah, so it's a special situation, but I just try to focus on the fact that we represent the U.S. On the international handball scene, and that's what matters.
What was your feeling the first time that before a match and they played the Star Spangled Banner? How did that feel?
I mean, even though it's maybe not the national anthem that I've been growing up with, it's still a special feeling standing there with your teammates and around holding your arms around your shoulders, and uh, hearing the national anthem. It's a beautiful moment, and even though it's not the Danish national anthem, it's still a super special moment, and it's I still remember the first time this happened. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love this, even though it's special because it's not your how can you say, because yeah.
I know what you're thinking. Um, it's it's a unique situation, but one
Exactly.
that and one that that probably doesn't feel like somebody that's been eating hot dogs and apple pie and celebrating the 4th of July his entire life. It's special to
Exactly.
everyone, and I think
Yeah.
I appreciate your answer and reflection on that. Um, uh, let's talk a little bit more about your pro career. You kind of delved into that a little bit. Where
Yeah.
was your where was your first pro contract, if you will?
My first pro contract. Well, let's just make it clear for all. I've only been like what we call semi-professional. So
Understood.
I've
Understood.
never had a salary that could pay my entire life, or yeah, life situation. So my first semi-professional contract was when I moved to France. So in France, they have a better economic situation handball wise than they do in Denmark, for example. So you can actually get paid all the way down to what is called N2, which is like the fourth best division.
Right.
When I moved to France, the first time I played in what is called N1, so third best. And here I was paid for playing handball, but would also need to do something on the side because otherwise, it wouldn't go around. So that was after finishing high school. So that was in the beginning of 2016. I moved to France and
Okay.
played there for 1 year. Then I moved back to Denmark, and because I had a semi-professional contract in France, I could kind of negotiate a small salary in Denmark as well. So this was in the same league, so N1 in Denmark. So I also managed to get a semi-professional contract there for the 3 years I played there, and
Yeah.
then
Real quick. So I'm familiar with N1F, and it's like they got they got D1 and D2 as the top leagues in France, and then N1F
Exactly.
is the third level. What level did you play in Denmark, and how would you compare your N1F experience with the 3 years you played in Denmark after that?
So it was actually the same level. So in Denmark it's called second division, but it's because in Denmark it's called the Liga, and then the first division and the second division. So if you convert that to France, it's the same as N1F.
Okay.
However, I would still say that the level is higher in France in N1F than it is in the second division in Denmark, because there are more players who can get paid, and therefore it just makes the level higher. So the 3 years I played afterwards in Denmark was on a bit lower level, but division wise it was the same as in France.
Okay. And you were attending university at the same time?
Exactly. So I was doing my bachelor degrees in the same time. So
yeah. And what did you get your bachelor degree in?
I did a business school in Copenhagen. So
okay. Right.
Business administration and project management. Very fancy name for nothing that special.
I was a project manager for many years. I started out as an engineer, and then they said, we got better engineers than you. You're good at organizing things. We'll put you in charge.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you were combining your university studies and playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And you did 3 years there, and then you decided to go back to France. How did that come about? And you talk about being semi-professional. Can you also give us a little bit of what you do in your real world job, I guess?
Of course. So I finished my degree in the summer of 2020, and then I needed to choose if I would pursue my master degrees or what needed to happen. And because my boyfriend is French, then I of course would like to move a little bit closer to him. So I decided to pursue a little bit more this professional handball life. So I contacted a D2 club here in France, which is called AES Cannes Mandelieu. And this is the club where I'm playing currently. So this is the second best division in France, for those of you who don't know that, where I managed to get a contract with them for 1 year, which I was super happy about. However, the salary is so I chose to also actually search a little bit for a job experience to see if that was a possibility, and managed to get a job actually already back in August 2020. So I've been working in a company called Oticon Medical since then, who does implants for deaf people. So very interesting, and I'm in the product management department, so that's super interesting. And
have you seen the movie Sound of Metal?
No, but I've heard about it, and unfortunately, the guy who has an implant there it's not one of our implants, so that's a little bit that's not so good. But I've heard about it.
Yeah, so the same kind of thing, though, right? So
exactly,
type of product.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so you're living in a beautiful location. I spent a week there. Most people know about the Cannes Film Festival. That's just one smart of it. It's one could get used to living in the south of France. Let's just
for sure. I love living here. It's wonderful. So, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your season with Cannes this year, and let's talk about how did the situation with Cannes with the COVID, how did that all
affect
contract and everything?
Well, when I came down to France, it was in the end of July, and everything was actually open here in France. A lot of tourists. You didn't even realize that there was anything called COVID actually. And we started the preseason as it was planned. We had practice every day, even twice a day. We did some friendly games, and then when we came to the beginning of September, things were getting a bit out of control. Let's say it like that. And some of our friendly games started to get canceled because there was some COVID in the other teams. And we could start feeling that, okay, maybe our season will be affected by this COVID. However, we played our first game in the middle of September, I think, with people in the what's it called in English?
Stands.
in the stands. Thank you. And we played actually our first game of the Coupe de France, which is like the tournament here in France, where all the divisions play together. And then we played our first game of the regional tournament and or championship, sorry. And then suddenly everything closed down. It was really like from one day to another, the season got postponed, and we could practice. The gyms were closed. Really, like it was super crazy to experience, because it was really just from one day to another we received like a WhatsApp message. Okay, guys, practice is canceled. Our game is postponed to we don't even know when. We'll keep you in touch. So this was like, I think, the beginning of October. I had the feeling that we literally just started, and then everything just closed down. Then I think like the whole month of October, we kind of just waited and tried to practice as much as we could. Our coach did some practices outside. We tried to keep in shape. Then in the middle of November, they discussed about how the Division 2 should continue, because the Division 1 never got impacted by the COVID, because it was seen as a professional league. So this was just like the job for them, so they could keep on doing their job. However, because we have a lot of semi-professionals as me in the D2, then the federation and the ministry couldn't accept the D2 as a professional league, so we weren't allowed to play. Then a lot of conversations back and forth, and long story short is that in the beginning of January, I think they finally managed to get the D2 accepted as a professional league. And we could then start up games, I think, from the 16th of January. And then we had 13 games in a row we needed to play. So 13 weekends with games. So it was really like from one thing to another. We didn't do anything to everything. It was super weird and really tough for your like mindset and your body, because we hadn't done any strengthening training for several months. We hadn't touched a handball for several months, so getting back to the court was tough, but also you were super motivated. You hadn't been playing for a long time, so all in all, a super crazy experience, but I'm just super happy that we actually managed to have the status as professionals and were able to play. So that's we're really fortunate to play.
Yeah, it's certainly been a season of ups and downs, and I think that's everywhere. There really hasn't been any handball in the U.S. to speak of. I mean, there's been a few club teams that have gotten together recently to play some matches. And I think the situation that you described there with the pro teams getting to play, I think that's similar somewhat to some other nations like Germany. I think
Yeah,
that
exactly.
below the
Exactly. Most
second.
of the European countries are like that.
Yeah, and like Norway, they're like pretty much shut down across the board, I think.
Yeah.
So it's very from club to club, country to country, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
very very frustrating. Um, well, we're running out of time on my Zoom clock, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause right here, and
Yeah.
we'll do another segment here shortly. I know you got to run off to practice, but for Nicole Andersen, this is John Ryan. You've been listening to the Team Handball News Podcast. Stick around for part two. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Cannes fight to avoid relegation and then the upcoming North American and Caribbean championships.